Hello everyone, this is Melanie with Lake Beams Treasures. And it looks like with the ice and snow outside, Texas is once again closed. I already took a nice little tumble when I went to my office and slid on the ice and bopped my little buttocks on the concrete. So I decided I am going to officially take the day off, and I am going to probably finish part two to David Lynch's Catching the Big Fish. As you know, I read the first part. Oh, we got a little friend, a little kitty cat. We did the first part while I was waiting for my laundry to dry, and now that my laundry's dry, folded and everything, back at home and pretty much stuck indoors again, I figured let's get started. So, for those of you who don't know, this is Catching the Big Fish, Meditation, Consciousness, and Creativity. Okay, gotta give a little homage to, this is my little baby Treasure. Hi, Treasure. We're gonna put Treasure down. Okay, so this is David Lynch's Catching the Big Fish, Meditation, Consciousness, and Creativity. For those of you who don't know about David Lynch, he is the director who did such movies such as Eraserhead, Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive. He did Wild at Heart. He did Dune. Twin Peaks was the TV show. That was my ultimate favorite. So I am going to read part two because I read about 40% of the book already. And I do have to say, I really, really enjoy this book. This is the first reading. Let me get the little baby down. This is the first time I'm reading this book. So what I'm reading is brand new to me, and I want to share this with you as well. So we are on the chapter, which is page 37, Yogis. When I first saw pictures in books of yogis sitting cross-legged in the woods in the forest of India, something would make me look twice. I noticed their faces, and it wasn't the face of a man wasting time. It was a face of a man holding something I not only wanted, but I didn't know about. I was drawn into it. There was such a presence of power and dignity, the absence of fear. Many of my countenances held playfulness or love, power and strength. That made me think that enlightenment must be something real. Even though I didn't know what it was, I figured the only way to try was to start driving within and see what unfolded. Because I knew what wasn't going to happen with life on the surface of LA. Bob's Big Boy. I used to go to Bob's Big Boy restaurant just about every day from the mid-70s until the early 80s. I'd have a milkshake, sit, and drink. There's a safety in thinking in a diner. You can always have your coffee or your milkshake, and you could go off into strange, dark areas and always come back to the safety of the diner. The Angriest Dog in the World. The Angriest Dog in the World strip came about when I was working on Eraserhead. I drew a little dog. It looked angry. And I started looking at it, thinking about, wondering, why was it angry? And then I did a 4-block strip with the dog never moving. 3 panels were set in the day, and 1 was at night. So there was a passage of time, but the dog never moves. And it struck me that it's the environment that is causing this anger. It's what's going on in the environment. He hears things coming from the house, or something happens on the side of the fence, or some kind of weather condition. It finally boiled down to what he hears inside of the house. And that seems like an interesting concept, that it would be just balloons of dialogue from within the house and the dog outside. And what was said in the balloons might conjure a laugh. The LA Weekly wanted to publish it, so they published it for 9 years. After a couple of years, it was the Baltimore Sun as well. Every Monday, I had to come up with what to say. Then I would phone it in. I would always do the lettering, and sometimes I didn't like the way the lettering looked. So toward the end of it, I did some lettering again. The editor had taken on the cartoon and went off to another paper partway through the run. I had different editors. Towards the end of 9 years, the same editor who had taken it came back to that paper and asked me not to do it anymore. It had run its course. Music. I was listening to the radio one day while I was working on The Elephant Man, and I heard Samuel Barbo's Adagio for strings. I fell in love with this piece for the last scene of the film. I asked Jonathan Sanger, the producer, to get it, and he came back with 9 different records. I listened to them all and I said, no, that's not what I heard at all. All 9 were completely wrong. So he went out and bought more. Finally, I heard Andre Previn's version and I said, that's it. It was composed the same notes as the others, but it was way different the way he did it. The music has to marry with the picture and enhance it. You can't just lob something and think it's going to work, even if it's one of your all-time favorite songs. That piece of music may have nothing to do with the scene, but when it marries, you can feel it. The thing jumps. It's the whole greater of the sum parts kind of thing can happen. Intuition. Know that by knowing which everything is known. Upanishads. Life is filled with abstractions, and the only way we make heads or tails is through intuition. Intuition is seeing the solution, seeing it, knowing it. It's emotion and intellect going together. That's essential for the filmmaker. How do you get something to feel right? Everybody's got the same tools, the camera, the tapes, the world, the actor, but in putting those parts together, there are differences. That's where intuition comes in. Personally, I think intuition can be sharpened and expanded through meditation, driving into the self. There is an oceanness of consciousness inside each of us, and it's an ocean of solutions. When you dive into that ocean, that consciousness, you live in it. You don't have to dive for specific solutions. You dive to enliven the ocean of consciousness. Then your intuition grows and you have a way of solving those problems. Knowing when is not quite right, and knowing a way to make it feel correct for you. The capacity grows and things go much smoothly. The unified field. One unbounded ocean of consciousness becomes light, water, and matter, and the 3 become many. In this way, the whole universe was created as an unbounded ocean of consciousness ever unfolding within itself. Upanishad. The ocean of pure consciousness that Maharishi Mahesh Yogi talks about is only known by modern science as the unified field. When Maharishi first arrived in the United States in 1959, the unified field from quantum physics hadn't yet been discovered. So people would say, oh, that's baloney. They're looking for some field at the base of everything, but it doesn't exist. No one knows if it's true. But then, 30 years ago, quantum physics was discovered in this field. They discovered it by going into matter, deeper and deeper and deeper. And one day, there it was, the unified field. And then scientists like John Hagelin said that it's true. Every single thing that it is a thing emerges from this field. So modern science and ancient science are coming together. Vedic science, the science of consciousness, studies the laws of nature, the constitution of the universe, and how it all unfolds. In Vedic science, the ocean of pure consciousness is called Atma, thyself. Know thyself? Well, how? You don't know yourself by looking in a mirror. You don't know yourself by sitting down and having a talk with yourself. But it's there, within, within, within. Transcendental meditation is a simple, easy, effortless technique that allows any human being to dive within, to experience subtler levels of mind and intellect, and to enter this ocean of pure consciousness, the unified field, the self. It's not the intellectual understanding of the field, but it's experiencing that it does everything. You dive within and you experience this field of pure consciousness. You live in it. You unfold it. It grows. And the final outcome of this growth of consciousness is called enlightenment, which is full of potential for us all. The 4th state. Many people have already experienced transcending, but they might not have realized it. It's an experience that you can have just before you go to sleep. You're awake, but you experience a sort of fall, and you may see some white light and get a little jolt of bliss, and you say, "Holy jumping George," when you go from one state of consciousness to another. For example, from waking to sleeping, you pass through a gap, and in that gap, you can transcend. I picture it like a round white room that has yellow, red, and blue curtains covering the white wall. The curtains are the three states of consciousness: the waking, the sleeping, the dreaming. And the gap between each curtain, you can see the white of the absolute, the pure bliss consciousness. You can transcend into that little piece of white. Then you come out to the next state of consciousness. The white room really is all around you all the time. The curtains cover most of it, so it's here, there, and everywhere. And times, without knowing it or knowing how, people have transcended. With transcendental meditation, from the weakened state of consciousness, you can experience that white wall anytime when you sit and meditate. It's a beautiful thing. Getting there. That Atma alone, the state of the simplest form of awareness alone, is worthy of seeing, hearing, contemplating, and realizing. Upanishads. Some forms of meditation are contemplation or concentration. They'll keep you on the surface. You won't transcend. You won't get to that fourth state of consciousness, and you won't get to that bliss. You'll just stay on the surface. Relaxation techniques can take you a little way in. That's beautiful. It's like having a massage, but it's not transcending. Transcending is a unique thing on its own. When you dive within, the self is there, and true happiness is there. There's a pure, huge, unbounded ocean of it. It's bliss, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual happiness that starts growing from within. And all those things that used to kill you diminish. In the film business, there is so much pressure. There's no room for anxiety and fear. But transcending makes it more like a game, a fantastic game. And creativity can really flow. It's an ocean of creativity. It's the same creativity that creates everything that is a thing. It's us. And why is it so easy? Because the nature of the mind. Because the mind wants to go in fields of greater happiness. It just naturally wants to go. And the deeper you go, the more there is until you hit 100% of pure bliss. Transcendental meditation is the vehicle that takes you there. But it's experiencing of the ocean of pure bliss consciousness that does everything. Modern science and ancient science. Scientifically, more and more is coming out to show that transcending is real and its benefits are real. By measuring an EEG pattern in brain research, they can prove that someone is transcending. They can prove that the person is experiencing a fourth state of consciousness. I've seen in a live demonstration traveling with neuroscientist Dr. Fred Travis. When you work on music, you use certain parts of your brain. When you talk, you use another part. When you sing, you use a different part. When you do mathematics, you still use another part. But if you want to use your full brain, you need to transcend. And every time you transcend, you carry a little more of that transcendental consciousness as you work on your mathematical problem, as you sing, or what you've done. Your brain is holding this cohesion no matter what you do. It's a holistic experience, the total brain functioning, and that increasingly becomes a permanent state the more you experience the unified field. The more that consciousness grows, and it doesn't happen overnight, but it happens more and more each day. Vedic science always said that this field is there and you can experience it. And now modern science, with each step forward, is affirming that. Anywhere, anytime. You can meditate anywhere. You can meditate in the airport, at work, anywhere you happen to be. Usually, I meditate in the morning before breakfast, the evening before dinner, and when I'm shooting, I meditate before I go and again at lunch. And if I haven't meditated long enough, I'll meditate when I finish. I've been in places where there are no other mediators around, but it's very surprising. People kind of like it. I'll ask for a quiet room and they say, "Oh, yes, yes, I'll find you a nice quiet place to protect you," and I'll go and meditate away. We waste so much time on things anyway. Once you add to this and you have it in a routine, it fits quite naturally. Identity. The thing about meditation is you become more and more you. Final cut. I love the French. They're the biggest film buffs and protectors of cinema in the world. They really look out for the filmmaker and the rights of the filmmaker, and they believe in final cut. I've been very lucky, and I've been in with some French companies that have backed me. But it wasn't always that way. When I made Dune, I didn't have the final cut. It was a huge, huge sadness because I felt I sold out. And on top of that, the film was a failure at the box office. If you do what you believe in and have a failure, that's one thing. You can still live with yourself. But if you don't, it's like dying twice. It's very, very painful. It's totally absurd for filmmakers not to be able to make the films they want to make them. But it's very common. But in this business, it's very common. I came from painting, and the painter has none of these worries. A painter paints a painting. No one will come in and say, "Oh, you have to change that to blue." It's a joke to think that a film is going to mean anything if somebody else fiddles with it. If they give you the right to make a film, they owe you the right to make it the way you think it should be made. The filmmaker should decide on every single element, every single word, every single sound, every single thing going on, and that highway through time. Otherwise, it won't hold together. The film may suck, but at least you made it suck on your own. So for me, Dune was a huge failure. I knew I was getting into trouble when I agreed not to have the final cut. I was hoping it would work out, but it didn't. The end result was not what I wanted, and it was sadness. Here's the thing though. When you meditate and bliss starts coming up inside, it's not as painful. You could ride things through like this and live through it, but it has killed a lot of people. It has made them not want to make a film again. Therapy. I went to a psychiatrist once. I was doing something that had become a pattern in my life, and I thought, well, I should go talk to a psychiatrist. When I got into the room, I asked him, "Do you think that this process could in any way damage my creativity?" And he said, "Well, David, to be honest, it could." And I shook his hand and I left. Dreams. I love dream logic. I just like the way dreams go. But I have hardly ever gotten ideas from dreams. I get more ideas from music or just walking around. On Blue Velvet, though, I was really struggling with the script. I wrote 4 different drafts, and I had some problems with it near the end. Then one day, I was in the office. I was supposed to go meet somebody in the next office. A secretary was there, and I asked her if I could have a piece of paper, because I suddenly remembered that the night before I had a dream. And there it was. There were the 3 little elements that solved those problems. That's the only time that ever happened. Angelo Badalamenti. I met Angelo Badalamenti on Blue Velvet, and since then, he has composed music for all my films. He is like my brother. The way we work is I sit next to him on the piano bench, I talk, and Angelo plays. He plays my words, but sometimes he doesn't understand my words, so he plays them very badly. Then I say, "No, no, 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 Angelo," and I change my words a little bit, and he plays differently. And then I say, "No, no, no, Angelo," and I change my words. And somehow, through this process, he will catch something and I will say, "That's it." And then he starts going with this magic down the correct path. It's so much fun. If Angelo lived next door to me, I would do this every day. But he lives in New Jersey and I live in Los Angeles. Sound. Sometimes you hear a piece of music and it marries to a scene in the script. When I'm shooting, I will often play a piece of music in the headphones while listening to the dialogue. Hearing the music is just justification that things are going the right way. For instance, the right pace or lightning. It's just another tool to ensure that you're following the original idea and being true to it. So it's a good thing if you got some music up front to play with to see if the scene works. Sound is so important to the feel of the film, to get the right presence for the room, to feel right from the outside or the right sound dialogue. It's like playing musical instruments. You have to do a lot of experimenting to get that just right. It usually happens after the film is cut, but I'm always trying to gather what I call the firewood. So I have piles of things I go to and see if it'll work. You just have to pop one sound in and then you realize that's not working. Casting. It doesn't matter how wonderful an actor is. When you're casting, you have to pick the person that marries that part, who can do that part. I don't ever give actors cold readings. I feel that that's a torment for them, and I don't learn anything. Plus, then I would want to start rehearsing with them. It would take a long, long time to do that with every actor. So I like just talk to them and look at them while they talk. I start running them through the script in my head as they're talking. Some of them go part way and then stop. Then one of them will go all the way, though I don't know. On Blue Velvet, I worked with casting director Joanna Ray, and we had all brought up Dennis Hopper. But everyone says, no, you can't work with Dennis. He's in really bad shape, and you'll have nothing but trouble. So we continued looking for people. But then one day, Dennis's agent called and says Dennis was clean and sober and had already done another picture, and I could talk to verify to the director that it's... Then Dennis called and said, I have to play Frank because I am Frank. That thrilled me and scared me. Sometimes I have somebody in mind from the beginning. There's a character in Mulholland Drive that worked that way. It was about 7:30 in the evening, and I was dictating to my assistant this beautiful woman. And I started talking in a funny way, and I started talking like the cowboy in Mulholland Drive. He just came walking out, and I realized after I'd been gone for a while that my friend Monty Montgomery would be perfect for that. And he's not even an actor, though he is an actor. Really, he's a great actor, but he's married to that part. There are some actors that I return to. Kyle MacLachlan, for instance. I like Kyle, and maybe he's kind of like an alter ego. But the rule of thumb, obviously, is to get the right person for the role. And that's what you go for. So the thing is, even though Kyle is my friend, if he's not right for the part, unfortunately, he doesn't get the part. What's really interesting is that when you work with somebody, you pick that person for a particular role. But then during lunch or something, you see another side of that person, and you remember that. So there's another role that comes up, and somebody says, well, Kyle couldn't do that. And then I remember that side of him and said, yes, he could. Rehearsal. When you rehearse, it doesn't matter where you start. You get actors together and you just pick the scene that defines the character in your mind. You have the rehearsal wherever it is, and the thing may be all over the place. Then you talk. Often, the talking doesn't appear to make much sense, but it does to me and to whomever I'm talking with. You can feel it making sense, so the next time you're rehearsing, things may get a little closer, and closer still to the next time. There's a lot of talking, especially at first. You can see many things, sometimes strange and stupid things. But you develop these little codes with certain actors or actresses. For example, More wind means more mystery. It's a weird thing. Yet little by little, just by moving your hand or saying some word, a person says, ah, okay. And actors at a certain point in early rehearsals will catch on. Then they're rolling, and all their talent could go down the track. The same holds with everyone you work with. When people say rehearsal, they're usually talking about actors. But there's a rehearsal that goes on with people of the crew in every department. The idea is to get to everybody to come together to go down the same track, and that track indicates by ideas. So a prop man, for example, may bring a bunch of props and they're totally wrong. But say a few things and he says, oh, okay, and comes back, and now he's much closer. Then you say a few more words and he goes back, and now he's bringing the perfect things. It's a matter of talking, of action and reaction. It works the same way with all departments because every element of the film is crucial if the whole is getting held together. It's always that same kind of process. You start rehearsing, and it doesn't matter how far things are, you just start over. And you may say, oh my goodness, we're very far away. You say that intentionally, of course. Then you start talking and rehearsing, and it begins to get closer and closer and closer. It's an abstract sort of thing, but everybody's getting there. The light bulb goes off at one point, and each person says, I think I've got it. Then you have another rehearsal, and you don't want to kill a thing, so you leave it alone until you begin shooting. You're always thinking of that original idea, that mood, that character, and though rehearsing, pretty soon it comes. And then once everyone catches the drift, they're rolling down in a line with you, and they're flowing with the things they were in the original idea. That is how it works. Fear. I hear stories about directors who scream at their actors or trick them somehow to get a performance. And there are some people who try to run the whole business on fear. But I think it's such a joke. It's pathetic and stupid at the same time. When people are in fear, they don't want to go to work. So many people today have that feeling. Then the fear starts turning into hate as they begin to hate going to work. That hate can turn into anger, and people become angry at their boss and their work. If I ran my set with fear, I would get 1%, not 100% of what I get. And there would be no fun going down the road together. It should be fun. In work and life, we're all supposed to get along. We're supposed to have so much fun, like puppy dogs with our tails wagging. It's supposed to be great living. It's supposed to be fantastic. Instead of instilling fear, if a company offered a way for everyone in the business to dive within, to start expanding their energy and intelligence, people would work overtime for free. They would be far more creative, and the company would just leap forward. This is the way it can be. It's not the way it is, but it could be the way it can be. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I'm on page 74. I will read the next chapter. In fact, I'm going to read the next section now, but I will produce this in another video. If you like these videos, be sure hit the thumbs up, put a comment below. I am going to be doing readings from various books, various wonderful, great literature moments that I have in my library. So thank you, everyone. This was part 2 of David Lynch's Catching the Big Fish, Meditation, Consciousness, and Creativity. Take care, everyone. Thank you for listening.